sit back, relax, and enjoy the Wilhelm Screeners. Here's your host, Ikaika Shively.
Hello, and welcome to the Wilhelm Screeners podcast. This is, I don't even know what number this is, but we're getting into it again. And I said I would do it every week, and I'm sorry I'm late a week, so I'm going to make it up to you. I'm going to do more things. But right now, we're going to do a movie review, and with me is always, actually not always, it's the first time. Wow. Who could it be?
You skipped a week? How dare you?
Who is that?
Me?
Who's talking?
I'm nobody. I'm a ghost. I'm Baby Groot right now.
It's Danotage, my cousin. Deej, call him whatever you like. Introduce yourself.
Hey everybody. I am known on the small section on the internet that is twitch.tv/man versus game. No, that's somebody else. It's definitely not me. No, my name is Dan. I go by Danotage on Twitch and YouTube and Twitter and everything, actually. If you want to make fun of Ikaika or say hello to him, you can probably find him there because he's one of my biggest supporters because he's amazing because he's family. But yeah, you can find me on all those. I create lots of gaming content. I do a little bit of educational stuff too. But I went to school for, I did all that, but I went to school for movies. So when people like Ikaika definitely ask me to be on stuff like this, I'm like, oh yeah, totally, I'm in. Let's do this. So yeah, that's me in a nutshell. I play games and I make fun of myself, and often my friends, like people watching the streams and the videos, make fun of me too. So we all join in together in making fun of me.
Yeah, be sure to go. If you don't know what Twitch is, what are you doing with your life? Twitch is amazing. If you're on Twitch and you're not following Danotage, follow him right now. It's not just he's not just an amazing streamer, but the community's amazing. They talk everything from politics to comics to movies to pretty much everything. Nothing's off the table unless trolls get the fuck out of here. But we're not talking about games right now. We're talking about this little movie called Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2.
Such a little movie.
Yeah, it's a little tiny movie. But I think this. For you, was this one of your most hyped movies of the year? I feel like for most people it was.
Like personally, no, but that's because I live under a rock sometimes. Like honestly, this one kind of snuck up on me. I knew it was coming, and I saw a lot of the recent media before the movie came out. I almost said game. I'm just used to talking about it. And it was kind of, a lot of it honestly was overshadowed by Star Wars stuff. To me. Just recently, because I usually don't hear about things. I like to stay away from most websites and stuff like that until like the movie's getting real close to coming out, because then that's when I start to get hyped and stuff. But this is something I had been looking forward to because I love the first one so much. For most of you that I mean, read or watch comic book or movies or the actual books themselves, you all will know that nobody really knew who the Guardians of the Galaxy were until the first movie came out, and then all of a sudden, comic book sales spiked because it was such a good movie, and we studied it in a lot of my major courses and a lot of my things when it came out before I was done with school, and now we still talk about it in grad school too because of how good of a movie it was. Not because the comic was great, but because one, you had characters that were already existing, which is why the comic was important to exist. But they went back and they just showed some really solid script writing, scene, all the juxtaposition, everything was just perfect. Like they just went back to old school writing and everything. But the marketing, I don't know. Did you? I mean, I guess you're not asking about marketing. You're asking about what I was hyped about. I was pretty excited for this, that's for sure. But that's why I told the story before, because I knew that they would do something very similar to the first one. I haven't been very excited about Marvel movies in a long time. I think the last two to come out were excellent. So you got Logan and you have Guardians of the Galaxy, which those are two that were probably the best in years in my opinion. Everything before that has been kind of crap. Thor looks terrible.
Hey now.
I'm a Thor fan. I'm a Thor fan. I'm a Hulk fan. So that movie's an abomination to me. But we'll see. I'll still go see it, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think I was pretty hyped for it, but not in the sense of, oh, I saw all this marketing and I saw the rest of the world was hyped about it just because of Star Wars.
Yeah, I normally I try and like watch every scene that comes out, but for this one I was like, you know what? I'm gonna just watch. I watched I think the 3 trailers that came out, but I didn't watch any of the TV spots and then all the scenes that like the little clips. I was like, no, I'm just gonna avoid it because trailers have gotten really bad lately, where they show way too much, and and it happens in this one. Like some great like comedic moments are in the trailer, which kind of sucks because you're like, oh, why is everyone laughing? Everyone's seen the trailer. But I guess we can just go right in. What did you think of this movie? Just like a brief, like, what did you think of it?
I mean, before I get into like comparing my thoughts to what other people thought, I used Twitter and Instagram to give me those things, but I would say I really, really enjoyed it. I think contrary to what a lot of people believed is I don't think it was better than the first one.
Mm-hmm.
But the first one to me was almost a perfect movie.
Yeah.
There was a few flaws, but for the most part, it was pretty perfect. So comparing it to the first one is really just not fair.
Mm-hmm.
But in the end, I thought it was excellent. I thought they had a decent bad guy for it's an all ages film. I thought they had a decent bad guy. I love who played him. I think it's a spoiler to say who played him, but
yeah.
I love who played him. I loved how the cast was all in their character. There were a few big character transformations and a few big character plot points that came out that were huge to me, and I thought they were excellent. I love. I don't think it's a spoiler to talk about the fact that the Ravagers are basically just pirates from Pirates of the Caribbean. And,
yeah.
But in a more adult version, and I thought that was excellent. I loved that. I had a lot of fun with their whole thematic contour to the rest of the world around it, because they were basically galactic pirates that were not based in any simple section. They seemed to be. It was almost like a John Wick thing, to where there was a lot of unspokenness between the crews, and how there was a lot of story that developed within that movie about it.
Yeah.
So I did, as a movie as a whole, I thought it was great. Is me having a little bit of bias against a lot of these late Marvel movies, because I enjoyed the Marvel movies when they started, but lately they've been kind of crap to me.
Mm-hmm.
But as a bias towards not liking them, I think this was a good, refreshing movie to come out and actually show me that they're still really good. So I liked it a lot.
Yeah, I agree. Like I really enjoyed it. It definitely has its flaws, which we'll go into later. I don't know if you think there's some major flaws in it, but I don't agree that people say it's better than the first. It's definitely, you can't compare it to the first. That's just unfair. Like, I mean, I know you're going to compare it to the first one, but it's more just compare it as a comic book movie where you want fun, you want some action. It's Marvel, so there's going to be some comedy in there, which there is a lot of comedy in this movie. It's quite hilarious. I don't know if it's funnier than the first one. I think maybe it's partially because a lot of the jokes fall flat, for me at least, and some people that I've talked to and went to see the movie with, there's some jokes that are just like, oh, that was just kind of not great writing. But then there's other parts, like there's a part which is about we'll go into the spoilers later about it, but about some Disney character, which is probably the best part of the movie. It's just hilarious.
Is that a joke or is it just a reference?
It was,
because it's real quick, right?
Yeah, it's like a quick joke. It's like a reference, but I don't know. We'll get into that more.
Yeah, it's super quick. It's nothing huge.
Yeah. I think that, like you said, the acting is really good. Everyone is back on their game. I think, even though I have an issue with Drax, how he almost completely dropped being like super literal. There's maybe one instance where he's literal about something, but everything else he's just like the joking guy. But man, does Batista have some comedic chops? Because there's some jokes that he does that are just hilarious.
What's the time frame between the first movie and the second movie?
It's supposed to 1980 is when the beginning starts, and then it goes 34 years later. So it's still 2014. I believe it's only a few months after, which is why Groot is he's still
a baby.
Yeah.
He's out of his pot and into the. At least he has legs now.
So I want to say it's between 3 and 6 months because it's still in the same year of when the first one came out. But I don't think there would be that much of a transition between Drax.
No, I think Drax would learn, but not quite as much as he may have shown in the script here.
Yeah, but there's still an evolution of everyone. Like with Baby Groot, how everyone is pretty much like the parent to him now. Like in the beginning, when Gamora's like, "Groot, get out of the way, you're gonna get hurt," and then he waves at her, and she's like, "Oh, hi." Like, I thought little things like that are really good writing, but there's also a lot of flaws in the writing too, where just some lines are just like, "Oh, did you really have to say that?" Or like,
yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. I think there's a lot of truth to the fact that they're still writing for a major audience, and there's not really much to go off of because, well, I mean. The comics lasted a while, and they still went on before the movie was going on, but nobody was reading them.
mm-hmm.
But because nobody was reading them, they weren't hiring like really impressive artists or anything, authors. So there wasn't really an entire character transformation. So I think they left it up to the movie writers. But at the same time, it's like if you're gonna think about maybe it's basically it's another space opera, kind of like Star Wars the original, but with way more characters and less character development. And I mean I want to agree with everything you just said, and I totally do coming from a writer's perspective, because I mean I've been known to dabble. Coming from a writer's perspective, I totally agree with you, and I think they should have done, could have, would have done a lot of things to make in our eyes the film better.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, if it is a comic book movie, the characters don't change that much within their comic book characters, so it's kind of reminiscent of that. And obviously, to make it better is basically to say to make the comic book better, which that's up to the other writers.
Yeah, I think all these they're just like little nitpicks for me. Some people might have bigger issues about it. For me, it's just like, you know what, that movie was still fun. It's just little things like that. But I guess let's see who I'm looking at the cast. Did you have a problem with any of the cast? Like for me, Karen Gillan as Nebula, I'm just like, she's okay. But
did you watch her in anything else other than, I mean, she's in Doctor Who, but she's also in a few like rom-coms.
I haven't, but people said she's like really good in Doctor Who and other stuff. Well, at least better than here.
She's never played this character before. Like I said, she's been in Doctor Who and rom-coms. Like this is a character far out of her reach, I think. But I do. So I think she did a decent job, but I think she got shoehorned into the story because of the fact that people liked her and people thought that she should stay. And I'm sure her manager really fought for her to be there.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think she should have been in the second movie. It was like a C story for her to be there, but I think she was there to have continuity and having her basically come back again for Thanos. Because it's not Thanos, people, it's Thanos. So when that appears, I think that's the whole reason she was in it. And I mean, she's major plot points in this movie. So I think that does bother me that they wrote her into that. I think they should have kept her in the story, obviously, but not as much as they did, because while she is really good as an actress, I don't think this is the role for her.
Mm-hmm. There's some parts where there's one scene in particular, which you probably know what I'm talking about, where something's revealed about it, and I think that's one of that was one.
End? Not
at the end, but like between her and Gamora, there's like a little conversation going on like as they're fighting, and
Oh yeah. No,
I
yeah,
thought
that's
that part
definitely
was done well. Like it really,
right.
the second time I saw it, like the crowd was like, and
Right. That I guess that's what I meant by the C story. That is the
mhm,
development and the big plot point for the C story. But she was also part of the A story, which
yeah,
was the part that bothered me. In the C story, I was like, yeah, that was perfect. I thought that was perfectly fine, and that should
mhm.
have been there. But yeah, no, I totally agree.
Yeah. I think about this. A lot of characters have like an A B C story, like how Rocket is has a thing with Yondu, and then he has, uh, then he's off on his own. Then he's with Groot, and there's all these things going on, which is great because I like to see everyone interact with each other. But I feel like it also gets like too crowded almost.
All
Uh,
right, that's the problem with that's the exact problem I have with all the Avengers movies, and why I don't like them is because unlike Guardians of the Galaxy, everybody is like the group is the star, right?
mhm.
Whereas in the Avengers, each individual is the star, so you have to have A stories for each individual one. Whereas Guardians of the Galaxy, the A story is everybody. Um, it's Hollywood at its finest in I don't know if you curse on here, but bullshittery.
Oh yeah,
Um,
you can say
it's
fuck
it's
shit, whatever you want.
yeah, it's Hollywood at its finest bullshittery because you want to give everybody a story. But if we compare it to the Avengers, I think they did okay.
Yeah,
Um,
it's
yeah.
not as it, it's more of a little complaint. It's not gonna make me not watch this movie ever again, but it's also makes me scared for when Infinity War comes out because there's gonna be so many characters,
Mm, there's gonna be a lot of characters. Yeah,
and
I
I
mean, did you see there was like a film teaser or like a behind the scenes teaser that came out like today or yesterday?
mm-hmm.
Showed, I think they showed Robert Downey Jr., the kid who plays Spider Man, and and Star Lord, what Chris, what's
Chris
his
Pratt.
name? Chris Pratt. And I was like, okay, just right there, you're showing three huge franchises together without showing all the other ones. Yeah, this movie's gonna be more crowded than ever.
Mm-hmm.
And Civil War was super crowded. But yeah, I don't know. I think that it with all those things happening with in showing how Marvel does things, I think Guardians of the Galaxy 1 was perfect in that sense, and then Volume 2, they did kind of go their normal Marvel route and kind of crowding everything with too many stories. But they were so quick and they were pretty concise to where I didn't have a huge problem with it like I did the others. But yes, it wasn't the greatest they could have done.
Yeah, I just think just the writing is it's kind of hard with comic book movies now because each movie has to be bigger and better, which means more people have to be thrown in there, and it's like you don't want to make the same movie, but you don't have to make it like this crazy thing.
Yeah.
Which another thing about the writing is I really think that the subtleness of the first one is somewhat gone, where they spoon feed you a lot of stuff, where they'll like say or something's building up and you're like, okay, I get what's happening, but then they say like what's gonna happen next, or like they'll hint at something like they're almost dumbing it down for the mainstream. I feel like I'm saying it like a hipster, but like the mainstream audiences that don't read comics or don't know anything about superheroes, they just like Marvel and they're going to every Marvel movie, but they don't understand anything. So I feel like they're
Yeah.
like dumbing it down for them, which kind of aggravates me to an extent.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately with these movies you're gonna kind of get that.
Hmm.
However, I want to say that James Gunn probably had full reign on the first one and probably had like 80% reign on this one.
Oh yeah, for sure. That's why.
And I'm sure that had a lot to do with it. But in the end, even with that being said, I think I think they still kept it pretty small for this, and I'm still quite impressed with what they did. Yeah, they definitely did what you just said, but I think there were slight things in there that comparing to the rest of the Marvel universe was still really good, and I do commend them on that. Um, I don't. Hmm, I don't think that. I don't think they got too out of hand, and definitely dealing with the fact that nobody really knows who the Guardians of the Galaxy they were. Again, I mean, I'm
Hmm.
going to keep bringing that up because I think it's important. since they don't really know who they are, it's easier to really write because you're like, we can put whatever we want in here and who cares.
Mhm.
But I think with the first movie being out and people seeing and obviously seeing those comic book sales spike, they definitely they may have had more pressure, or Marvel might have stepped in and said, well, we're gonna. Well, actually, no, that's right. Marvel's not involved in these things anymore, right? It's all Disney, so that could be part of the big change too.
Yeah, it's definitely Disney. Well, I think
I think Marvel has
Kevin
finally stepped down.
Feige, if he's part of Disney or just ahead of Marvel.
I want to say he's head of the Marvel department in Disney
Mm-hmm.
now because they, from what I mean, I could be totally wrong, but from what I read a couple years ago, is Marvel is finally taking a step back. I want to say Civil War was like the last one they did. Is finally taking a step back down from things and not having their writers be nitpicky about anything because it's going to be 100% in Disney's hands.
Mm-hmm.
Now, since then, things have obviously changed. We've seen a few movies show Disney prowess and show Disney the tropes that we see throughout Disney movies. So it does exist in the sense that I think Marvel should have been in there and should stay in there. However, that's not going to happen anymore, so it doesn't really matter.
Even though this is a Disney movie, don't you think it's like kind of dark? Like they show a lot of like people dying, like the deaths and stuff. Like I was like, wow, like even though there's no blood or anything, it's still
that was the whole Ravager scene. It was pretty disturbing for sure.
It was disturbing, but my demented mind still liked it for some reason.
Well, it was. I mean, that's the thing is like if for story writing, it needs to be disturbing because of what happens and why a certain character becomes that certain character. And then the next part that happens after that, you're like, okay, we feel justified now.
Mm-hmm.
It's totally fine.
What was I gonna say? Visually, what did you think of this movie?
Visually, I thought it was great. Visually,
did you see it 3D or 2D?
No, I don't really watch too many things in 3D anymore. Not because I don't like it, but I'm totally I would rather I enjoy it more in 2D for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
I like movies to be in 2D. I like certain things to be in 3D. Like any type of VR, if you show me in 3D, I'm like, yeah, I want it in 3D. Definitely, that's freaking awesome. But when it comes to movies and film and big screen stuff, I want it in 2D. But visually, I thought the color palette was broad and very 80s, but on purpose and very stylistic amongst that.
Mm-hmm.
I thought the visuals behind a lot of their ultra keys and blue screens was perfect. I didn't see any flaws, which has happened in recent movies. I think Civil War, if we went through it, I can point out at least a dozen of them.
Oh yeah, there's a scene where like Robert Downey Jr.'s head is like jolting in like the suit, and it's like what's going on? Which I don't understand. That's one thing that really annoys me is why the fuck is Iron Man like not have a when they're filming it, like he never has a suit anymore. It's always CG, and now even Spider-Man, it's a CG suit. Like wear a real suit. Helmet. Come on.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It probably. I mean, it's probably to make it consistent, but obviously it shows that it's not that consistent.
Yeah.
But no, for visually, I mean, we're talking about what kind of filters they use, what kind of gels, and they used a very similar style set throughout the entire movie, which is what I appreciate. A lot of movies these days are getting pretty hipster. They are getting to the point where they're moving from color palette to color palette to color palette to show what kind of emotions you're supposed to be feeling at that whole time. But this entire thing was based on the theme of, celestial and around the story of that we are celestials. This is celestial. That we're in space. We're definitely in an 80s realm, or at least we still have that 80s feel, even though we're in the future. But without throwing like a old film grain to make it look like it's an older movie, which they totally could have done, and I'm sure a lot of hipsters would have loved it. But no, I think it's perfect that it was this way. Visually, I think there's a lot of themes that went through that I definitely appreciate, and I think it was a great job. In fact, that's one of the first things you can ask Katie. for those who don't know, Lady Lami's Katie, my girlfriend, she went and saw it with me. The first thing I said when I got out was I appreciated the colorful palette that they showed in the rainbow bright color palette that was part of the entire thing. Because they're doing the same, almost exactly the same thing with Thor Ragnarok, and that does not fit in that realm. So I appreciate the fact that they can do it in Guardians, but I really wish they would leave it out of Thor.
Yeah, like I feel like Civil War. I feel like it's getting more and more dead in color, where it's like because it's supposed to be a dark kind of movie,
Yeah.
so it's just like how you're saying we're trying to convey the feeling of the movie by just the color. But here, I feel like I'm like opening like a splash page of like Infinity War, where it's just like there's crazy color everywhere, which I love. I haven't read like too many of like. Well, I haven't really read any Guardians of the Galaxy, but I always just go back to Infinity War because it's in space and you have pretty much every crazy hero and villain in there. And
Who's directing that?
I believe it is still the Russo brothers.
Okay.
Which
because that's going to tell you what color palette they use. I mean, mostly it's usually the DP, but I think in this case, if it's the Russo brothers, you're definitely going to have them picking the color palette, and they will probably. I would like them to go Guardians of the Galaxy route and make it look like Guardians of the Galaxy, because I think since it's going to be at the scale that it should be. A lot of the Captain America films are filmed like they were in cities, which they use a lot of gels for as you would in a cityscape, which is I think fine. Iron Man kind of uses similar stuff, but he also uses a lot more color palette that you would see in like a Not Another Teen movie or scarier movies or stuff like that, because it's better for his transformations. I said Not Another Teen movie. I meant Another Teen movie. And then so with that happening, I don't really know what we're gonna see in this next one, but I mean a lot of the images show that it's sort of going the Guardians route. I just never really know if it is until you see it.
Yeah, I think even like the CGI is, I feel like whatever it's a Disney or just a Marvel movie, they have top notch CGI where Rocket looks.
Yeah,
he
Rocket
looks
looks
more
great.
and more realistic. Where there's scenes where he looks kind of weird. Some close-ups. It just really depends on the lighting, especially like if there's a spotlight. CGI and light isn't it much harder to make, or just it's much harder to actually do. That's why like scenes in Pacific Rim are always like during the night.
Well, yeah, you have to match the lighting. I mean, but then again, a lot of that you can do in post anyway, so it really depends on their skill and their not necessarily their skill, but their eye, because a good CGI artist is also a filmmaker, or at least somebody who's been through composition classes and been able to do that kind of stuff, because that lighting has to match. It doesn't have to be great lighting to make it look cool or anything, but it has to match. And if it doesn't match, you can obviously see the differences there. In fact, because of that, I'm willing to bet that Thanos is going to look terrible. He already looked terrible in the previous films, and I don't know how much better he's going to look with when he's in his own. But the smaller characters like Groot and Rocket, who we definitely have main textures on, I think will look really good. And I mean, we've seen it look good, but I don't know. CGI is not an easy thing. So me talking about this is basically like saying, well, I know how to speak Chinese because I can say one word.
What do you think about? I mean, it's not really too much of a spoiler. In the beginning of the movie, Kurt Russell, his CGI.
When they're on Earth?
Yeah, when like they make him look young.
Yeah, they do that like they did with Captain America and a lot of other these. I don't know. I mean,
It's
obviously
so
it's not,
weird, but
it's not easy. Yeah, it's definitely not easy. It's something that it definitely puts you off, because we're not gonna have that stuff. Like obviously you're coming into the movie knowing Rocket's gonna be CGI, obviously. So you're kind of expecting that. But when you see a real person CGI to look younger, you're like, oh, this looks a little bit. I'm a little bit off kilter at this point. So I kind of expected it that way, because I knew that, but yeah, it wasn't perfect. Let's put it that way.
I'm trying to think. Do you have anything else before we give our final review and then into spoilers? Because I feel like we have a lot to say, but we're just holding our tongues because we don't want to do the spoilers.
No, I think that's basic. That's the basic gist of everything. I mean, it's not a complex film, so we're not going to get into a lot of underlying themes or anything.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I think it's pretty basic as a overall review.
All right. So if I would give this, I mean, I really like the characters. There's some, like I said, there's some little issues about the writing and some inconsistency with the characteristics from 3 months or 6 months, whatever it was before, within the last movie. I still really enjoyed this movie. I made a rank of like all, I think there's 16 now, 16 Marvel films, just like the Disney owned ones, the MCU, and it's in my top 10 for sure. I would have to rewatch some of the other ones to really get like a really accurate rating, but I would have to give it just because there's some mistakes, a 4 out of 5. I want to say 4.5, but I don't know. I feel like if I watch it a third time, I might catch more things, and I've been known to give higher ratings when I'm like really hyped about a movie, and then I'll watch it again. Like Jurassic World, I love that movie, and then the third time I watched it, I hated it.
It's not a good movie.
Yeah, but yeah, I would say 4 out of 5. What about you?
Yeah, I think I was gonna say 4 out of 5 because I figured you might go 4.5, but I think 4 out of 5. Because I mean a lot of what you said is very true. And it's not fair to compare because I think I give Guardians a 5, the first one. But I think I give this one a 4 only because it really feels like the people that were responsible for how good the first one was were not as involved, and people kind of took over like your normal Hollywood bullshittery again. And I think that brought it down a full star because of what you can tell exactly what they did and what they were involved in. Yeah, I mean, it's not perfect. It's not really close to perfect either. I think Guardians Volume 1 was close to perfect. Yeah, I'm gonna have to stick with the 4.
All right. I guess we'll go into spoilers now. So if you have not seen this movie, go see it. It's not the best movie ever, but it's not a mediocre movie. It's a good movie. You'll enjoy it.
It's well above average. Yeah.
But we're gonna get into spoilers now, so turn it off if you haven't watched Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. All right, I'm just gonna go right into it. Michael Rooker.
Those people that haven't seen the movie are gone now.
Yeah. those heathens that haven't seen it yet. Michael Rooker, I think, is amazing in this movie. And
I love Michael Rooker, period.
Yeah, which just sucks because every show or movie he's in now, he just dies. And this movie was just another one of them. And I mean, I liked him in the first one. I feel like a lot of people didn't appreciate his character in the first one. They just thought that he was like the asshole or the anti-hero or whatever. But this one really showed just how awesome, not just with his arrow, but the whole father-son relationship between him and Star-Lord, I thought that was one of the best written parts. And then him sacrificing himself at the end, like, I'm not gonna lie, I got teary-eyed in theaters. Like, I knew it was coming because Rocket was like, I have one jetpack and I have one this, which they did not need to do that. They could have just been like, I need to do this or something, and then Rocket just like nods.
It really drove that point home, which was good. No, I agree with that. But how'd you feel about Rocket knocking out Gamora and closing the doors and just like he knowing exactly what was happening next and showing his emotion there?
I thought that was good because that was subtle. He didn't like, oh, he has to do this. Like he just did that and like looked down like sad. So they're thinking, what is for like I guess the less educated moviegoers are like, oh no, they're just gonna leave Yondu and Star-Lord down there. They're both gonna die. But if you paying attention, you can realize that he feels bad because he knows Yondu's gone and how they had the relationship grow between them because they're both the same person. Even Yondu even says that, which okay, in the movie when he's like, you push people away and you steal batteries, da da da, and I know who you are because I am you. There was literally a couple people in my audience, my theater, that were like, what? Like they literally thought they were the same person. Like there was Draxes in the audience that took everything so literal. I was like, no, that's not what they mean. That they're not the same person. They're like,
there's Draxes in the audience.
yeah. I was like, come on. But I don't know. What do you think of or Michael Rooker and Yondu?
Well, see, I think that this is where I go back to script writing again, because because you see two different pieces here, right?
Mm-hmm.
You see the entirety of well, let's develop this connection between Yondu and Rocket. It's meant to, in one way, in the top layer of it, it's meant to make it so they don't fight, and that they actually want to work together to go save, Star-Lord and the crew, after they escape the ship, because it sounds like they've got a bond going.
Yeah.
And then that last part of we're the same person is just like that sealing deal. Okay, we're together now. We're probably going to be part of the same team for a while. If things go wrong, I know I have Yondu, and we're going to have each other's back because of how close we are now.
Mm-hmm.
But in the deeper layer, and the more you dig into it, that part was literally written so that final scene can happen.
Yeah.
The matchmaking between Rocket having the pieces and Yondu telling him, I've been done nothing but bad things in my life. Let me have this one.
Mm-hmm.
It was, if it were anybody else, or if Rocket and Yondu did not have the connection before, Rocket probably would have tried to do something to save them both. Yeah. But he knew in the back of his mind and throughout his heart that he knew that is exactly what Yondu wanted. He did not want both of them to be saved. He wanted to go out like this because it was perfect. He had lost his crew. There was no reason to go back to being a Ravager. Mm-hmm. There was no reason to stay with being a Guardian because he would have been the outsider. Like he knew exactly what was happening and why he should be doing what he's doing. And Rocket was fully in agreement of it. So he's like, I'm going to do this because he's become a good friend, and I understand because, well, like you said, we're the same person. So with that, they created those two. That's two plot points in the story between Rocket and Yondu that if they weren't both together, that end would have been far, far less powerful.
Yes.
And I think that's incredibly important.
And then it would make the end scene with the Ravager funeral, which I think is one of the most beautiful moments in Marvel cinematic history. Like, mm-hmm. I mean, you have like the action scenes, like the airport scene that comes to mind to everyone. To me, this might be my favorite moment because people that pretty much exiled Yondu, they came back because they heard about what he did. And then with that song, oh god, that song put in there, there's people crying in the theater, and it wasn't like a few people. Like there were sniffles throughout the whole theater, which you have to have some good writing to play that off. Some people didn't like it, but personally, I thought that was one of the best parts of not just the movie, but of Marvel recently.
Right. Well, as somebody who's studied both Viking culture and pirate culture and how they do things, like for them to do that is basically, I mean, you see it in I forget his name, Yondu's right-hand man.
Kragan, I think.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Krillin, something like that.
Something like that. But when you see him cheer like he does, mm-hmm. I mean, that's the key right there. For those who don't know the culture, that is basically saying he is no longer gonna. It's like, I mean, for religious people out there, it's like basically saying he's not going to hell anymore.
Yeah.
He's because of he's been accepted by the crew, which is whatever's going on. He's not going to hell anymore because he's now being sent off in a real way. If you watch Star Trek and look at the Klingon cultures, they do the same thing there. If you read into any pirates during the colonial times, you'll see that. If you look into any of ancient Viking sorts of rituals, they do certain things to where if you were exiled, or if you're basically said, you're not going to Valhalla because you did something immoral or you did something you shouldn't have done.
Mm-hmm.
That person might as well go kill themselves. At least that's what they feel like, because well, their life has no purpose anymore.
Yeah.
So when and that's the whole reason Yondu came to whatever he was doing, and he's like, I just want to do something good for once. And so for them to come back and do that, that's basically saying he's good now. He's finally he's all everything's all wiped off his slate. He's no longer, like, you don't have a criminal record anymore, and you're basically not going to spend the rest of your life in jail.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of the most beautiful moments in anything, really. And being somebody who's a big culture fanatic, I think that was one of the most beautiful moments to me as well.
Yeah, as much as I'm bashing the writing, there is a lot of good writing. Like, people may think when he saves Star-Lord and he's like, he may have been your father, but he wasn't your daddy. And then some people, they may think, oh, that's like the connection between both of them. That's like them recognizing, or that's Star-Lord recognizing that's his father. But I think the Mary Poppins line where he's like falling down and then Star-Lord's laughing and he's like, huh, you look like Mary Poppins. And then is he cool? And then he looks at him and he's like, yeah, he's cool. Like, I think that's where he realizes, this is my real dad. And
well, yeah,
he could have totally bashed him and made a joke about it, but he was like, you know what? He's cool.
Like we said earlier, the people who write Guardians are going back to script writing 101, and it's the reason we studied the first script in class, because they did exactly what you need to do. You drop seeds at the beginning. You drop things at the beginning that are going to loop back and make sense later. Mm-hmm. I mean, the reason, and so Star-Lord called Rocket a trash panda, and then he's like, is that better or worse? Because he's making Earth references.
Yeah.
And he's like, it's definitely way worse. So he does that, and then they do the same thing with Yondu, like you just said. Mm-hmm. Is Mary Poppins cool? And he sits there, he takes a beat, and he thinks about it. He's like, okay, so let's loop back. Now the seed is coming back, it's blooming again. Mm-hmm. I'm going to change it, because he knows that in another light, in my normal character, I would be saying, no, he's not cool. Because it's basically, he just made fun of him, but now he's taking that beat and saying, okay, I'm going to change this because this is a very different moment. Mm-hmm. Honestly, if anybody out there is looking into learning how to script write, I think this movie and the last one, this is the perfect way to write a sequel. I think, not the perfect, but it's a pretty damn good way to write a sequel. John Wick 2 is one of the perfect sequels. And I studying this script and the first script are really, really solid pieces of writing.
I agree with that. Like, the writing, there's definitely the mistakes and issues, but there's so many things they do well. Like, even the scene with when Mantis is with Drax and he's talking about his daughter, and then she just touches him and she starts bawling her eyes out, and then it zooms in on Drax and he's just like looking off into the distance, but he doesn't look sad. He just has his blank face, not sad or happy. But I really thought that was another good moment of subtleness that explains, like, because we don't know too much about Drax. Like, we got a little bit, like, oh yeah,
you don't know his backstory.
Yeah, which I really hope we get that in the third one, because he's a really good character. Well, they all are.
It depends on what we see. It depends on what happens in Infinity War, because that's going to make or break whether these stories continue, I think. But yeah, if they do make another one, they'll probably do that.
Well, James Gunn said he's starting to write the third one now. It's supposed to come out 2020.
Doesn't mean
I
he's
think.
contracted to write it, though.
True.
But that scene, I want to comment on that scene. One, I mean, we said at the beginning, the acting is fantastic in this movie, and I think that's a good scene of the acting. But I think that is, if you're gonna give an award for one scene for a director, that's one of the best scenes that has been directed that I've seen in a very long time, because you're directing both those actors to play those parts perfectly, and I think they did just that. Batista, obviously he's an actor coming from the wrestling background. I would say most wrestlers are really excellent actors, because we see them doing all this shit live. It's ridiculous. But to really see Batista's acting chops come out there And I don't know anything about who played Mantis, but she did her job and her role really well as a counterpart to that.
Mm-hmm.
That scene was probably the best acted that I've seen in a very long, best directed and acted I've seen in a very long time. I was impressed. I saw it. I remember the exact moment and what I was feeling during that moment, and I thought it was very impressive how that scene went down.
Yeah, I don't. I like both of them in that scene, but I'm not too sure how I feel about how they're pushing them to like may or may not be in a relationship. It's like, why does everyone have to be in a relationship? Like, we already have.
I think that was just for comedy purposes, but yeah, I do see what you're saying.
Yeah, if it was for comedy purposes, that's fine. Like the end line was like, "You're beautiful on the inside," but
yeah, I think that was just a callback for a joke because I think even though they all have their comedic points, I think Bautista is purely meant for the comedic relief.
yeah. I think even Gamora is underused because she has her C story with Nebula, which is great, and there's some really emotional parts that hit. But even though we know it's the Star-Lord show, it's a Chris Pratt show, I don't want her to just be the love interest. Like, we got that one scene where she had that huge gun and she's just shooting the shit out of Nebula that's stuck in the ship.
Ship's cannon. It's ridiculous.
But I want more from her on her own. Like, don't just be the one that's nagging. So maybe in the third one we'll get more.
Just remember, we're still dealing with American Hollywood, so
Yes.
that's one of those things. Either, I mean, this is not news to anybody, but either you're an emotional wreck and a big crybaby as a woman, and this is all female characters. You're either a big emotional wreck and a crybaby. You're the middle of the line, kind of pretty solid, grounded type girl, but you're the love interest. Like, that's all you are to the character, to the movie. You're just the love interest that's probably a damsel in distress, or probably somebody who can kind of take care of herself, but she's never going to be the hero. Or you have a character like Gamora, who is basically like Black Canary in Legends of Tomorrow, like probably I'm afraid of this, but I probably like what Wonder Woman's gonna be is you're the hero, or you're one of the main characters, but you're so tough that you cannot be in touch with your emotions at all.
Yeah.
Or you're a lesbian, because I mean that's basically, I mean, yeah, she's bisexual. Black Canary in Legends of Tomorrow, she's bisexual, but most of the highlights in that show is about her hooking up with another female, and it's like that. Those are the three tropes that you get in this Hollywood culture, and it's really sad. So I mean, I'm hoping Wonder Woman changes that, but I have no faith in it. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I'm on the fence about it. Even with like Captain Marvel, I have no idea what to expect. But let's see, Groot.
Yeah.
Going into it, I was thinking they were gonna over rely on Groot because everyone loved him so much. I feel like they used him a lot, but not too much. Like the opening scene. First of all, the opening scene where, well, I think it's the second opening scene, or the first scene we see the actual Guardians of the Galaxy. I thought that was brilliant. How there's this epic fight going on, and they're like, "Oh no, we're just gonna focus on Groot, and you won't be able to see this awesome battle in the background, and just Groot dancing and being cute, just cute as baby Groot." God, I don't know.
Have you ever played the Telltale Borderlands games, Tales from the Borderlands?
I watched you play some of the episodes, but I haven't seen all of it. It
reminded me of their opening sequences. If Ryan listens to this, he's gonna think I'm just on my knees sucking him off. But I think Telltale does a really good job with opening sequences, and I feel like I was watching one of those games, watching this opening sequence, because it was just because there's no story that needs to happen during that. There's too many things going on.
Yeah.
Where that has to happen. So what they did is they threw a monster in just to tie up the fact that they've been doing contracts and stuff like that. They threw a monster in, really means nothing other than it leads to the rest of the movie as far as just a starting point. But once again, I go back to basic script writing, because you needed to start in. I mean, think about it. You've written stuff you've written a lot of scripts in your lifetime. How hard is it to start a freaking movie?
It's hard. That's the hardest parts of writing.
Exactly. And I think this is the way you do it. You throw something that really, like, who cares about who the monster is? The monster doesn't matter. The fact is, it's cool on screen. It looks fantastic, and you can do an entire fun, interactive credit sequence with it. And it's just, I mean, I wouldn't say it's perfect because I knew that it was good going in. A couple people told me about how good it was, and I kind of expected more, but that could be totally just my bias there.
Mm-hmm.
But it was fun to watch, and it was meaningless, and it was perfect because it was just a scene, then it was action, and it led into the beginning of the movie, and I don't think there's a better way to do it.
Yeah, which the scene that which leads to that is our introduction of what are they called? Those gold bastards?
Oh,
The sovereign or something.
Sovereign, yeah.
A lot of people have an issue like, oh, this is another terrible. Like, why are they needed? And to me, it's like they're pretty much just put to cause a ruckus. Like, they're not they don't need to be there, but it helps set up the film. And I think there's some good comedic moments where like they're like the video game where they're shooting the drones and like when they die and it's I thought that was pretty funny. We didn't need too much of that, but I mean it's also set up for Adam Warlock. Which what do you think of that credit scene?
Oh,
when you saw it, did you know what it was at first?
I don't really know anything about Adam Warlock. All I know is that the Sovereign are an actual villains in the Guardians of the Galaxy universe, but that's because in Dungeons and Dragons terms, the Guardians are neutral. They're like neutral good, meaning they're not really on either side. They're just there to do what they think is good, and they're kind of mercenaries for the most part. But they're more like Han Solo and less like Boba Fett.
Yeah.
So where they're gonna lean towards the good side, but they're mainly doing things for money. So when somebody like that hires them, they're not necessarily. I mean, they're the perfect situation for a villain, which is they think they're good, but they're doing bad things. Because I mean, it was all satirical, right? The entire race was a satire piece to the whole thing, with the whole, like you said, the video game ship flying, the fact that they're bred to be perfect, but not in an evil manner. They're just dumbfounded that way, showing that perfect is not a thing that you can actually attain. Perfect is just something that you can fantasize about, and then it ends up biting you in the ass later. But I don't know anything about Adam, so I don't know where that comes from or what that is. But I think I think if it was like a DC something, if it was DC character, DC villain, or somebody I knew more about, I probably would have like Craigasmed and jizzed in my pants. But since I don't know anything about it, I have no idea what to expect from that.
I only know from Infinity War, like how he pretty much I don't think he's a celestial or anything, but he's really powerful, like up there, and he's a big part of trying to take down Thanos. What do you say, Thanos?
Thanos, yeah.
But I mean, I knew he was coming, but I thought it was going to be like actually him and not just like a teaser. But that's what I really appreciate about this movie is there's not too much setup for sequels. Like we get, that's gonna happen, or we see that, but it's not like the Avengers.
No, that's what I appreciate about it. Though, like Star Wars Episode 7 is all about setting up for Episode 8, and that I hated it. But I mean, the first movie did it the same way. They finished their mission, they saved the galaxy, and they went off on a ship. That's about it. That's almost exactly what happens in this one too. Obviously there was loss and tragedy, but it wasn't somebody that was fully a part of the crew, so there's plenty of room to just do the same thing again with a new story, and I think that was fantastic. But I think where they failed, and going back to the Sovereign people, I think where they failed in showing how powerful that scene is the Sovereign never really won a battle, right? They never really put the Guardians in the dirt. Yeah, they screwed up their ship and everything like that, but that wasn't really a huge blow because they took them out anyway. It wasn't a big deal.
Yeah.
If they would have done some major damage instead of the Ravagers doing what they did, then again, that's what makes it difficult, because they kind of had to do what they did. But if the Sovereign actually won a battle and put a big blow into the good side, I think we would have seen them be more of a there was nothing on the table. There was no gambling. There was no fear of like what the Sovereign could do.
Yeah.
So when they create something like Adam, you're like, who cares? I don't know and how am I supposed to care about this when the Sovereign really don't seem that good of a people, or that talented and that fearful of a people. So I think they failed in giving them power, but then again, like I don't know how I would have done that. I think I don't know. I guess because what I would have changed was when they crash landed on that place and the Ravagers came to get them. Obviously, Sovereign hired them, but I think if it were the Sovereign people that went and did it, obviously it would have been out of their character. But I think it would have showed they had more balls, and I think that they would have been scarier. To then create this new threat would have been a little bit more threatening.
Which, by the way, that scene with Rocket going after all the Ravagers on that planet to Summer Nights,
that's pretty good.
That was pretty good.
Yeah, I like that.
But at least we get Kurt Russell as a villain, which
I love Kurt Russell.
Which him in anything is just great, and I think he was the perfect choice for Peter's dad. Which, I mean, you see it coming. You know he's gonna be bad because like, oh, it's all perfect, and he's doing this, and then once the reveal happens, people are like, oh no, we didn't expect this. But I don't care. It was the way it was written. There's a little silly scenes like them playing catch with the little orb that they created. I thought that was hilarious / beautiful as well. It gets a little crazy. Like he's like the villain in the sky, like every other pretty much movie that's come out in the last like 4 years, where he's not. You don't even see him anymore. It's just like this blue light. But I thought it was really cool about just how he was a Celestial, first of all, which I like when like how Doctor Strange kind of expanded the Marvel universe, because now there's different dimensions. Now there's Celestials.
I haven't seen that. I need to watch that one.
I don't know if he would like it or not. It's okay. It's
well when he said, hey, I'm a Celestial, you mean God? I was like, well, I mean, Kurt Russell is a god, so I guess that makes sense. But yeah, no, it's perfect. I agree. I would see. I don't think I've seen anything. I don't think I've seen Kurt Russell in many things I didn't like, and that includes the Fast and the Furious movies, because I'm a sucker for those movies. They're so bad, but I love them.
I don't really like those movies, but I like Kurt Russell in it. He can't be bad in anything.
No, he's great.
Let's see. Is there anything else about Kurt Russell? I don't know. There's definitely things that could have been better about him, but I like how he was. When they're like, so why did you leave my mom and da da da, and like saying, well, if I went there one more time, I would never leave and finish my mission.
Right.
But I really like the part where he says it killed me to put the tumor in her head, and then you're like, what? And everyone in the audience is like, what?
There were two choices. That could have happened there. Star-Lord could have said, oh, well, that's over. I'm here with my dad. I'd rather be with my dad than I'd rather not ruin the relationship with my dad and everything, because it seems like, this is kind of what I wanted for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
But instead he stayed to his character and got really pissed and shot him up, and is like, that was, I think that is something that a lot of movie makers make the mistake of, and trying to show the emotion there, but the instant reaction of, I'm gonna fuck you up, dude, because you just killed me. I just found out you killed my mom. That's right in his character, and I think that was good writing right there.
Did you have any thoughts on the actual fight between them, like how Star-Lord was just crazy and could fly and make himself a giant Pac-Man?
Well, the Pac-Man was a little bit cringy, but it's still part of his character, right?
Yeah.
But I think I do think that it showed another piece of more fatherhood from Yondu, because of the fact that he's like, because he said something earlier that another seed, and it's like, I don't use my head to use my spear or my arrow. And then he said it again, and he's like, okay, I finally understand. Now let's do this. And then the giant fight happened. So, I mean, the fight itself, I mean, that's I don't know. I really don't have the expertise to talk about it. But I think the piece that got into it was, I think, pretty good. It wasn't mind-blowing, but it was pretty good.
I really liked how they used, because like how music is really important in these movies. And when the chain came on, where it's like kind of mellow in the beginning, and then when he starts like actually like honing into his powers, and like the music starts speeding up. I thought that was really good. What did you think of the whole soundtrack? We didn't even talk about that yet.
I'm not a huge '80s guy, but the films the songs they did pick were good. Like they weren't your average Journey or anything going on. Like you didn't have your basic, just you hear it at every bar, at every karaoke event or something like that. I thought everything was fitting, and they still picked songs that were thematic. So it still was a front theme to what was happening in the background. So I think their choice in music was fantastic, and they knew they had to ramp it up because of how big of a hit Volume 1 was, and they did. I think it was good. I liked every song they played. I knew every song they played, and I had fun with it. So I mean, I can't really complain about it, especially because it actually fit the theme without being smack dab in your face about certain things. So I mean, I enjoyed it. I think it was great.
And now we have the Zune to look forward to with a 300
Oh my
songs.
God. That was probably most people in their early 20s, mid-teens, something like that. Nobody understood that.
Yeah.
At least that's me coming from a hipster perspective. And I was like, oh my God, this is hilarious.
Yeah.
Hilarious. Because as you guys know, nobody used the Zoom.
Yeah.
I think I knew 2 people that had it, and they had it for like a year, and they stopped. They forgot it even existed.
Oh, isn't that why they found it in the scrapyard?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, there's that, but there's also it was the point of like, oh yeah, everybody's listening to this, and you're like, oh my God, this is me being nostalgically hilarious. It's like pulling up memes. It's like pulling up old E-Bombs World memes from back in the day, because that's basically what it was. That was like the first meme of the internet was, oh, Zunes are gonna be awesome.
The only thing that bugs me about these soundtracks is people aren't putting the right songs in the right soundtrack. Like, I Want You Back from Jackson 5 is not from Volume 1. They play that after he gets the tape, so it's technically Volume 2. I might be a little thinking too much about it, but come on. It's Volume 2, not Volume 1.
Agreed. And they also did like a fourth wall thing without doing a fourth wall. So you just reminded me of this. They did breaking the fourth wall without actually breaking the fourth wall. Like when Rocket goes to, I forget his name again, but Yondu's right-hand man, and goes, hey, do you have any duplicate or any clones of Star-Lord's old music?
Oh, yeah,
and it was like, that is a call out to, we're about to play music, but we're going to put context on it. We're not just going to play music in the background for no reason. It was actually happening within the movie. Yeah. I thought that was pretty genius. I don't throw around the word genius a lot, but I thought that was pretty genius.
Yeah, I didn't really have an issue with some people. Like my friend, he had an issue about it where like, why couldn't they just play it, and like, why can't they just play the song in the movie instead of having like where Groot's trying to wait, I have to set up the song and then we can have this fight battle. It's like, you know what? I don't know. I like it.
Oh yeah, they did it at the beginning too, huh?
They did it with Mr. Blue Sky, which I think is my favorite. I've been listening to this soundtrack in my car like over and over and over again, and I love that song. It's so good. And all I can think about is Groot dancing and like just being happy. I don't know. It just feel good.
That brings happy thoughts. That's for sure. But I forgot that they did the fourth wall thing again with the opening sequence. I totally forgot about that. He's like, I got to set this up. It was a little bit less powerful because they said it was like, oh, it's just he's the one that likes music. But they also made a joke out of it and was like, well, no, I think that's highly unprofessional. Oh yeah, Star-Lord totally thinks this is unprofessional. It's like, no, I really, that's not a good idea. You shouldn't do that. And I thought that was great. It's a good way to it's a way to enter in because the music, unlike a lot of movies, and I would say 90% of movies, the music is a character in this movie. I mean, obviously movies have a theme in there. They have people that sit for hours and hours and days and weeks trying to pick the music. But I think this became a character in the script, whereas for the first time, the scriptwriter actually had to pick the music. And not for the first time, but for a very rare occasion, the scriptwriter actually got to pick the music, and that was a big part of what was going on. And to be able to put that in there and say, we're gonna do this, and we're actually gonna throw it in your face that this is part of what's happening in the actual movie, is I was one of my favorite parts. I love that.
Like Ego even like quotes Brandy word for word as he's talking about how he loves Star-Lord's mom or how he loved her, and I thought that was cool too. Like how he was quoting it as the song was actually happening and they were listening to it, and then again with the father and son song during the funeral. I just thought that was perfect too.
Yep.
I don't know, like I also think that I haven't really listened to the score in this one, but the score in the first one is really underrated. It's not as catchy or as awesome of a theme as like Wonder Woman, but there's still some really good compared to other Marvel cinematic scores. Guardians has Tyler Bates knows what he's doing. It's pretty good, but people don't really listen to that unless you're like a movie nerd.
Well, right, and it's one of those things where it's like I know I've heard this song before. I have no idea where, I have no idea when, but I know I heard it. So it's like it's one of those things that's semi-familiar, but not at all familiar to where I know every lyric to this song, or I know why they picked this song right away. It's just like it takes you a minute, and I think that's what good movies do is they give you something that you can get, but you're not gonna get right away.
Yeah. Okay, we kind of went into Adam Warlock. What do you think of the other cameos and the post-credit scenes? Like, for me,
there were 2 post-credit scenes, right?
Yeah, no, I think there was 4 altogether.
Oh, the last one I saw was Adam when we left. So what did I miss?
So there's Adam, there's Teenage Groot. Did you see that one?
No.
Oh my god.
I missed Teenage Groot. I gotta watch it.
So pretty much, it's Teenage Groot now, and he's like playing video games, and Star-Lord is pretty much like being the nagging dad, like I'm tripping over your vines and da 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 da, and then just Groot looks really awkward because he's in the awkward teenage phase. It's pretty funny. And then the last one is
there's also the Yaglin using controlling the arrow, right?
Yeah, which that was kind of weird because Yondu gets burned, and he's wearing the prototype fin. So how did Kraglin get it? Because it looked like the exact same fin, unless they had 2.
Well, they probably took it off.
No, because when he's burning, I paid attention to it. Yeah, and it was getting red like it was burning too. So I don't know if that was just
that's just continuity problems.
Yeah. And then the last one was they went back to the Watchers and Stanley, which I thought was one of the most genius cameos because
there was also the Ravagers one too.
Which I didn't know what the hell that was a reference to. I had to look it up. Like, oh, they're the original Guardians of the Galaxy. Okay.
Yeah, the Guardians of the Galaxy version 1969. Yeah.
Which I hope they show up somehow. Not get their own movie, but
no, they'll get referenced again though. I mean, you're gonna hire Sylvester Stallone just to do a couple scenes. I mean,
Miley Cyrus was the voice of the robot head. You got Michelle Yeoh.
Was she really?
Yeah. Ving Rhames was the big guy.
Yeah.
So what did you think of the Watchers being present and pretty much confirming the fan theories that Stanley is a Watcher or in the credits? I think he's credited as Watcher Informant, which explains why he's in every Marvel movie.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think it's Stan Lee making a point that is canon and of writing stature to why he's in there, and it's not just a cameo.
Mm-hmm.
By basically saying, yeah, we're gonna do this. A lot of people that watch these movies are not gonna get it, but it is something that is gettable.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think it's fine. I think it actually makes sense, which is what is okay about it. If it didn't make sense, then it'd be like, oh no, I'm okay.
Yeah, I just got really excited because the Watchers were thrown in there, and that's just like, I would say maybe 60-65% of people who watch these movies will have no idea who the fuck that is. Like they're probably like, who's Adam? And they're also asking, wait, what were those guys with the big heads? Are they like just aliens? It's like, no, they're like, they big play. Especially, will they come back in Infinity War? Who knows? But
They will. I mean, now that they've shown who they are, and they really couldn't do that in any other movie.
yeah,
And they could have done it in the first Guardians, but there was. I mean, you probably had to shoehorn it in there.
yeah,
The fact that it was in here during their jumps, it made sense. And like I said, you couldn't do that in any other movies. So I think putting it here was decent timing.
yeah. It just makes me excited for Doctor Strange, well, the sequel to Doctor Strange. I'm assuming they're going to do it, Infinity War, and the next Guardians, because those are the most likely that crazy stuff is going to happen. Like, I really wish that Disney could somehow buy Silver Surfer off of Fox and throw that in there. That would just,
Well, if they could do that, they could grab the Hulk, and then I wouldn't hate the Thor movie but it's too late for that now.
yeah, man.
Because that's really all I want. I want them to be able to buy the Hulk so they can actually make Planet Hulk and its own movie and not shoehorn it into Thor Ragnarok.
It's like Universal just won't give up the rights. It's like, oh, come on.
Yeah, well, if they're smart enough
Yeah.
to where they're not going to do that and lose all the potential. I mean, they have basically they're saying, well, we're one of the only companies that can have Disney by the balls, so we're going to have this because humans like power. So
I'm still really excited about Thor Ragnarok. I mean, I get where you're coming from, and how you're iffy about it and you hated the trailer. But I'm excited mostly because Taika Waititi is an amazing writer and amazing director. I don't know if you've seen any of his stuff he's done.
yeah, I have.
I
have. This is me coming from a comic book perspective.
Yeah.
As a movie, it might be fine. But as a comic book movie, I hate the fact that Thor looks like he's in Tron, and then the fact that they took the Planet Hulk story and just replaced Hulk with Thor.
Mm-hmm.
Because for those who don't know Planet Hulk story, everything that happens to him being alienated on the planet happens to the Hulk in the Planet Hulk story. And then the person that bursts out of the gates and says, "Hey, we're friends," yet attacks him is actually Beta Ray Bill, who is also who is like Thor and has his own hammer and has his own type of armor and stuff like that. But so basically they shuffled the characters. They played musical chairs with the characters by saying, "Okay, Hulk, you're going to become Thor. Thor, you're going to become, Thor is going to take the role of Hulk. Hulk is going to take the role of Beta Ray Bill, and Beta Ray Bill, well, nobody knows who you are, so who cares? Get the fuck out of here." That's basically what just happened, and they're going to keep the similar story and stuff like that, but it's more Hollywood shit because people would have loved to see a Hulk movie, but they couldn't give it to him, so they did it this way. Which I don't agree with, but I also agree with. It's like, I get why you guys are doing it, but I really don't want you to do it. So we'll see what happens.
Okay, before we end this, because we pretty much covered everything of Guardians of the Galaxy, are there any confirmed Marvel movies that you're excited about that's coming out? Or just comic book movies?
I don't even know. Well, Wonder Woman, obviously. That's one movie I've been looking forward to since the beginning of DC movies, since Batman, since the Nolan Batman trilogy.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to see a Wonder Woman movie. I've always wanted to see a Wonder Woman movie. So and seeing more trailers, I think this is going to be pretty good.
They're advertising the shit out of it, by the way. If you've been to a store within the last couple of days, because they've been waiting for Guardians to come out,
sure.
They're everywhere now because they spent
But
more on advertising.
If you look at the budget for what they did for advertising, it's only about a third of what they spent on Batman and what they spent on.
Oh yeah, for sure.
On what they spent on Civil War, it's sad, but yeah, they're putting it in they're just spending their money smarter, which totally makes sense.
Justice
League.
Yeah,
I think it's gonna be good. Plus, I'm a fan of Chris Pine, so I think that'll be good. I'm still not excited about Gal Gadot being her, but I mean, I think she's gonna do as good of a role as she's gonna do as good of a job as she can possibly do. So we'll see how it goes. I'm excited for it. But other than that, what other Marvel movies are confirmed? For Ragnarok, you already know I'm not looking forward to that.
Black Panther.
Oh, Black Panther does look good. I'm actually pretty excited about that one. Yeah.
Let's see. We got Captain Marvel coming out.
I'm biased against Captain Marvel too because Captain Marvel is a DC character that they had to rename because Marvel said we're gonna make a Captain Marvel and you guys can't use Marvel. That's just me being a hipster though. Captain Marvel should be fine, but I know nothing about her, so we'll see how that goes.
Well, there's Infinity War and the sequel, which I'm not gonna say because I don't know if you know, because the title was slipped, but I'm not gonna say it because I don't spoil it if you don't know it already.
Okay. Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
Infinity War. I think it's gonna suffer the same problems that the Avengers movies had, so I'm gonna hold my thoughts until I actually see it.
Oh, what do you think about Hellboy? The big news about Hellboy.
Oh, getting a revamp.
Yeah. And it's supposed to be darker, and it's rated R now.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really know this guy all that well. I know I've seen him in a few things. I know he's a good actor, but I don't know what kind of work he can do behind the camera.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't really know. I think the original Hellboy was good. I like the original one. I don't know if I like the sequels too much, but I like the original Hellboy. I thought that was good. Do we know if it's gonna be what's his face again?
Oh no, it's gonna be David Harbour from Stranger Things, the sheriff. They just confirmed.
Oh,
that.
he's gonna. I thought he was directing it. He's actually playing Hellboy.
Yeah. It's
okay.
The director he did The Descent and that horror movie, The Descent, and a couple of Game of Thrones episodes. I don't know what to expect.
I haven't seen Stranger Things, so I'm not sure yet.
Oh. He's pretty good.
There's a bunch of TV I need to catch up on. But I think I like Hellboy a lot. I met the author. He's a dick, but I like his books. I like his work. Like he's an asshole, but he makes good things. So I'm excited to see it. Yeah, as long as they don't do what they did with the sequel, which is making it more goofy and stuff like that. Because Hellboy is super dark. I mean, Hellboy is supposed to be super dark, so the fact that they're doing it this way should be interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I don't know. I think it should be fine. I think it'll be. I know. That's what I'm talking about. I know I've seen that guy in other things other than Stranger Things.
Yeah.
So I'll see how it goes. I think it'll be good, but who knows? So yeah, I have my thoughts are positive, leaning positive for that.
Yeah, I really want to see more third party. Because is that Dark Horse?
Yeah, it's Marvel owned Dark Horse, but yeah.
I want to see more like a Spawn revamp. They've been talking about it for the longest time. I think Spawn is. I mean, it's such a '90s character, but it's cool. I like it.
Spawn's cool. He does a lot of cool things.
Or at least make it like a Stars show, just like rated R, and just go crazy with it. I don't know.
Yeah. I think Marvel would do. I mean, sorry, Netflix would do well with the Spawn.
Mm. Who knows? There you go, Netflix. That's an idea for you.
Yeah, pay us now.
Now. Yeah, there's so much, so many comic book movies, and then there's all the X-Men ones, X-Force, Deadpool 2, and I don't know. I mean, Logan made me excited again about X-Men, but then some X-Men movies was like
I think
Apocalypse
X-Men should be done. Apocalypse was kind of an abomination, even though it was super nostalgic from watching the cartoons as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Apocalypse was a mistake, and I think Logan was a great addition. So Apocalypse was a mistake because Days of Futures Past got ruined by their old director coming back and ruining it. I had high hopes for X-Men with First Class because that movie was pure genius. So if they somehow do something like that again, then I'd be excited. But with the last two movies, excluding Logan, I'm pretty done with X-Men, and I love the X-Men.
Yeah, I think everyone loves X-Men. It's just, come on, Fox, get it together. You have all this, like Fantastic Four or Fan Four Stick. That was just terrible. It was so bad.
Power Rangers was good though. I like that.
I still haven't seen that.
That was a better Fantastic Four.
All right. Well, we pretty much said everything about Guardians of the Galaxy and the future for comic book movies. Thanks for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem, dude. That was fun.
It went over. I said an hour at max. We're an hour 20 right now, but
Yeah, it's all good.
it flew.
You know I talk a
It
lot.
flew by. Yeah. Whenever you want to come on again, talk about because I want to do video game podcast too. So,
Yeah.
video game, movies. But until then, we're the Wilhelm Screeners. I'm Ikaika. Do you want to plug your things one more time for us?
It's simple. Just Danotage and everything. Danotage, like Sabotage and Dan, on everything. YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all of it.
You're the man.
You're the man.
All right. Thank you for listening. And next week, I promise something will come up. I promise.
Don't promise anything.
I already promised. Oh, shit. I'll just.